By definition, a storyteller conveys events in words, images, and sounds, often by improvisation or embellishment. The Living Bread Radio Network presents The Storytellers with Tony Agnesi. Today you'll hear a faith-based, inspirational story that's both heartfelt and heartwarming. And now, let's meet today's storyteller with Tony Agnesi.
Hi, this is Tony Agnesi, and welcome to this edition of The Storytellers. This is episode number 15 here in our third season. A couple of quick notes before we begin. The Storytellers debuts on Wednesday nights at 6 p.m. on the Fiat Ministry Network and on Facebook Live and YouTube, and at 6:15 at my YouTube page at Tony Agnesi. The radio program is in its third year. It airs at 4 p.m. on the Living Bread Network stations. And we're very happy to be back for our third year with Living Bread Radio. And for the second year, we'll be airing here in my hometown on Wadsworth Community Radio. The show airs at 10 and 4 on Sundays. Want to remind you about my new YouTube video series called 5 Minutes with Tony. It's at my YouTube page at tonyagnesi.com. We post a new reflection every Monday and Thursday. And so if you can get on there, there's 36 of them up so far. And if you subscribe, you won't miss a single one. Well, each week on The Storytellers, we feature an inspirational guest discussing not only their personal faith journey and the ministries they share as authors and speakers and bloggers, radio and television hosts. Today's guest is no exception. Kim Zember is the author of a book entitled Restless Heart, My Struggle with Life and Sexuality. See if I can get it up there without getting too much reflection. And Kim is a speaker internationally, and she talks about love and the freedom that she's found in her life. And her book is extremely transparent, and it's written in a style that I just fell in love with right from the outset. And Kim, it's an honor to have you on the program. Thank you for joining us here on The Storytellers.
Oh, Tony, it's truly an honor. Looking forward to it.
I mentioned the book, and I just love the way you write it. I want to get into the backstory first, but just a thought: the way you write is just so open and transparent. I like how you chunk it up into. I'm one of those people that all of my books are written 700 words at a time. So I learned very early on that my brain can't handle more than that. So
yeah, bite size is always nice.
Bite size is great. Well, let's talk a little bit about your personal faith journey. I know that you had pretty much a normal, childhood, and what happened, what changed in high school that started you on this journey you've been on?
Well, same-sex attraction really kind of rose to the surface my senior year in high school, and there's a lot of backstory, of course, but I do find it's important to share, in my personal journey, I did not have any abuse in my life. I was never molested. I didn't have any physical or spiritual or emotional abuse. Grew up with, great Catholic family and not just Catholic by title. My mom and dad both love the Lord. It was very clear in how they lived their lives and how they raised us kids, and had two older brothers. And yeah, I mean, really just kind of a cookie cutter family, but it was my senior year in high school. And, I kind of struggled because I was attracted to men. I was drawn to women always. I always remember a draw to women, and I wouldn't say it was sexual. I was just drawn to them. But it was my senior year in high school. And, I had dated before that. I had dated guys, but I realized they wanted to have sex. It's kind of the genetic makeup, and I get that, but I really did want to save myself for marriage. And so I was like, you know what? I don't think this dating thing is going to be working in high school. I'm just going to, if this is how it's going to end, I'll skip that. I don't need it. But in that I was lacking. All my friends were dating, and I just started to feel lonely. I wanted someone like everybody else had someone. And I'm not saying that desire, to have someone led me to now same-sex, relationship, but there's a lot of different, components and pieces that no doubt came together. But the reality was I had a desire for a woman, a young woman in my grade, my senior year. And I started entertaining it in my mind. And then I took that to action. And so I did know, Tony, that what I was thinking and the feelings and the desires I had, I did know that they were not of the Lord. I did know that God did not put those desires into my heart. But also know I didn't really either. I didn't want to have same-sex attraction, but I had it. And so, I didn't really want to go to my parents to talk to them because I knew what they would say. I knew what the church taught. I knew what the Bible had said. And so it was like, I didn't want to hear that because I didn't want to do that. I wanted to do what I wanted to do. And, I wish I could say differently, but that ain't true. And so, it was my senior year when I actually had my first encounter with the same sex in a physical way. And it had opened something now for me that I would now long and crave. And so longed for and craved, and I couldn't shake it. It was like, literally, it came in like a rushing wind. And I wanted to be with that girl. That didn't work out, but I just now had this, it's almost like it hit a taste button. It was like, oh, I like that. I relate a lot to food. If I never had cheesecake, I probably would never crave cheesecake, and some things you try and you don't like. But then there's some things you try and you do like. And this was something, I loved the intimacy. And I'm not talking about sexual intimacy. I'm talking about just intimacy. She understood me. We got, there wasn't she wants something from me, so it was kind of safe. Well, it was safe in some ways, but I didn't know it was a sin. Just like premarital sex, I don't know why I thought, in my mind, I was like, what? Everybody else around me is having sex, doing drugs, getting drunk. Is it really that big of a deal to kiss a girl? I mean, honestly. And so I justified. I was like, what? It's better than X, Y, or Z. And so I started kind of comparing and stacking up sin next to each other. Like, it's not that big of a deal, and it won't go anywhere. Well,
did you ever entertain the thought of coming out as?
No. Because, for me, it was, I did have the desires, but, from even that young age of 17, I did know it wasn't who I was. Right. And so I just always kind of had that, by the grace of God, had that dividing factor that was like, okay, you have this desire, but it's not who you are. So for me, coming out was not something, because I was like, well, I'm not going to probably live this lifestyle. I don't know, because I didn't want to live in sin. And I mean no offense to that, but look, there's sinful desires we have. If I choose to act on them, I'm now living a sinful lifestyle, right? Mm-hmm. But and so for me, no, that wasn't on the radar. I actually was the opposite. I was like, I'm gonna hide this because I knew it wasn't right, and so I didn't want to promote something that wasn't good. And so no, I hid it, and that was a big issue.
Yeah, we all have these sinful desires. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be same-sex attraction. It could be any number of things. It could be that cheesecake if you're, if you're trying to get your blood pressure down and your cholesterol organized. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we all have those types of desires. So how long did that relationship last, and then where did you go from there?
Yeah, so it didn't last, actually. It was a one night thing, and it wrecked me, because I was like, I mean, it just really messed with me. I don't mean she messed with me, but just everything. And then not being able to share it with anyone, or choosing not to share it with anyone, was something now I was battling on my own on the inside. And so the being with women ended up, now it opened up. Once I was with her, it was like, okay, I need to feed this craving. Like this needs to happen. And so I just went, I dated guys on the forefront, and then for years was with women behind the scenes, never out in the open. And really the women that I was with, it wasn't like, oh, you were just running around fulfilling a physical need. No, I really liked these women. I wanted to be in relationship with them. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, the physical part was always secondary. It wasn't forefront. It was like, I just wanted a partner in life. And I, for some reason, felt more comfortable with women than I did men. And you would think, people are like, oh, maybe it's your relationship with your dad. I'm like, I have a phenomenal relationship with my dad and my two brothers. And I have a phenomenal relationship with my mom. Nothing's perfect, but it wasn't like, I didn't feel it was a lack. I know now it was a lack of my relationship with the Lord, that I was trying to fill a void, that He really is my partner in life. And I was trying to fill that void with friends that were women, and then I turned it into more. But it went on for years, Tony.
But you also had, you also dated men, and I know, at one point a man entered your life, and you made a considerable move in that direction. Talk about that period in
Yeah.
that transition?
Well, I met a guy he was just wonderful. And he was different. He wanted to have sex, of course, right? But he did more than his desire. He wanted to live for the Lord. And so right when we started kind of hanging out, he's like, I don't know if this bothers you or not, but like, I want to wait till marriage. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So it was kind of a safe zone for me. I'm like, okay, all right. And so I kind of opened my heart to him, and started being a little more. He was super attractive, great guy, and solidly Christian. I'm thinking, okay. But I still now on the side was feeding this thing with women. And so it was this wrestle, it's like my flesh wanted one thing, which was women. And then there was something deeper within me that was like, wait, this is real. What I was starting to experience with him. It led to a lot, and the details are, of course, in the book, but he actually told me he loved me, and that freaked me out. I'm like, why? This guy was so solid, so down to earth, and I was materialistic. I was living on the surface. It was all about money and what I had and how I looked, and I'm thinking, why does this guy who isn't trying to get something from me, why is he doing this? And long story short, he asked me to talk to God, and that God would tell me why he loves me. And I was like, it's weird. And so I talked to God, I asked God to show me a heart, and I ended up moving to Ethiopia after that. And that started a whole nother thing, which started to open my heart to something more than putting a person in my empty place. Right.
I recall reading or hearing at one point you mentioned that you may have used him as kind of a God replacement. Talk about that for a second.
I would say I actually used him not as a God replacement, but more of like a God funnel. He was like the connector. He had his relationship with God, and then I just hooked onto his tunnel, and it was this pass through instead of a direct connect to God. I was feeding off of his relationship with the Lord. I was feeding, which can be a beautiful thing if it then connects you to God directly, right? To Jesus. And so in that is where I was going wrong. So now I needed him, right? Because without him, I was not connected to the Lord on my own. So he was kind of this bridge per se. And I ended up marrying him. So I ended up getting married. By the way, I did tell him everything. And like I said, it's in the book with the details, but I did tell him that I was cheating on him with a woman. And it was one woman at the time. I had, been doing whatever I was doing for about almost 2 years with her. And I told him, and, we had long discussions, but he still said, I want to marry you. You're the one for me. And thinking, oh boy, I'm not dealing with this, like I knew I wasn't dealing with something inside. And so, yeah, we ended up getting married, and about a year into our marriage. And actually, when I did get married, before I got married, the night before, I got on my knees and I said, Lord, I promise you, I will never cheat on this man with a woman. And those words were not forced. That came from my heart. I did not want to cheat on him. And I knew that if I were to, that it'd be with a woman. And I didn't ask Jesus for help. I didn't ask him for strength. I said, I wouldn't do it. I thought I had to do it in my own strength. I thought I just had to fight it. I thought I had to push it down, ignore it, and that is not what the word of God says at all regarding any temptation or any sin. And so, yeah, within about a year of our marriage, maybe a little bit over, I ended up cheating on him with a married woman.
Mm-hmm. Restless Heart, My Struggle with Life and Sexuality is her new book. Kim Zember is my guest. During this time, did you still go to church
every Sunday?
Every
Sunday. And I didn't want to miss it. I was out on my own. I was selling real estate from 18 on, so I was making a lot of money and this and that, and also going to Ethiopia. But I had a desire for God. I just didn't want to live the way he was inviting me to. I was like, I'll do the holiness thing later. And I didn't know about St. Augustine at the time. And if I had, I'd been like, okay, if I maybe would have read Confessions at a young age, maybe something would have changed. But, it goes back to that whole thing that, was burning in St. Augustine's flesh, really was make me chaste, just not right now. And that's what I was telling him. Actually, the book, I almost titled it, but through prayer and discussion, it became Restless Heart, but it was going to be Not Yet God. Because that was really what I was saying. My whole journey was just not yet God, later God,
like that country song, everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to go now, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And so I wanted to do what I wanted to do. And I was living a life of feeding the flesh. And when the word says that you become a slave to your sin, I was starting to realize that I could not shake this on my own. I could not cut it out on my own. I couldn't stop on my own. I was consumed. And I don't blame anybody but myself. I chose to act on desires.
I was also fascinated. There's a whole nother theme going through the book, and that is Ethiopia and your motivation. What motivated you to, leave California and head to Africa and work with young children there. What was that motivation, and what was the attraction that drew you to Ethiopia?
Well, I was honestly tired of living for myself. Like it was, though it worked for a while, it was like, okay, is this it? Is that it, God? Like, really, am I put on this earth to just get everything for me, take care of myself, and me. And so when I asked the Lord to show me my heart, he showed me a memory I had when I was a child. And that involved Africa. And so I said, all right, I'm going. I took that.
Now, a lot of people thought you were nuts, right? A lot of people kind of questioned.
I thought I was nuts. I mean, I really did. And I still kind of do. But I'm thankful that, and it's so cool because, some of the ideas we have for ourselves, it kind of maybe the glory can fall back to us. But this was such a thing that was so far off my radar. I was not a traveler. I didn't care to take pictures or, it wasn't a tourist thing. It was like, there was something. I'm like, I'm going to find out if this is real. Worst case, I was wrong and it wasn't God. That wasn't the case. It's been 13 years that I've been in Ethiopia now and have a ministry there serving little kids and their single moms. So really what God did on that trip and has continued to do was he showed me that all the reasons he made me the way he made me, whatever gifts he's given me was actually given for a bigger purpose. It was to serve others and not myself. And I started to experience that. Not only did I start to live it, I started to receive the fruits of it. Like, oh my gosh, wait, I'm going to bed and I have peace. I have joy. I'm like excited to see what God can do tomorrow. And I never experienced that because I was living, just in torment when I was doing this double life business. And so when I started to give of myself, whatever God has given me to give away, I started to find real life. People would thank me. Oh, thank you for, because we did food, we, supplied meals and education and all the things for the kids because they didn't have it. And they would thank me. I'm like, you have no idea. You guys are like, God is giving me life through serving you. You don't understand, and that might sound selfish and Lord, forgive me, but I'd never found that connection. And I believe that's how the Lord works anyways. When he blesses one of his children, he's blessing another.
The subtitle of my second book is called Turning Your Misery into Ministry. That's about what you've done, right?
Well, that's what the Lord has done. Yeah. And he, I think he invites us all to that. It's whether or not we accept the invitation.
Mm-hmm. There was at one point in time you sold everything and kind of moved there. When did that come about?
Yeah, I was 23. So I was still dating that guy. And I was just, I couldn't deny I could, but I didn't want to deny what the Lord was doing. I sold my house, sold my car, sold everything I had. And I moved to Ethiopia and I was like, okay, let's go, Lord. I don't know what this looks like. And keep in mind, I wasn't chatting with him too much. He was talking a lot and I thought I was kind of crazy. I'm like, I don't know, like, why am I hearing all this? But every time I'd walk in faith that I was hearing him, there was fruit coming and I'm like, okay, this is different. And it was life for the first time for me, to be honest. Everything I did before seemed fake, though it really all happened. And I don't mean, relationships, there was some, with my family and some close friends, but really the things I was doing on the day to day just no longer, they didn't seem as real. And they surely weren't as enticing or as palatable for me anymore. It was like I had tasted and seen something that really made all the other things I was doing pale in comparison.
Kim Zember is my guest. My Struggle with Life and Sexuality. Restless Heart is the title of her book. I was interested to see, too, Kim, that you take the net proceeds of the book sales and they go to your particular charity, which I think is just an absolutely wonderful, wonderful thought.
Yeah. I think I don't want any money. The Lord, if it can fuel what he's doing in Ethiopia, amen. But, I didn't write the book for book sales. I didn't write it. I actually didn't want to write it. Because who does, right? Who wants to write a book of all the junk that I've done, that we've done, and put it out there for the world to rip apart, but I needed a book like this. I needed a book of somebody being real with the struggle and not sugarcoat things and just really expose their heart. and let me walk through and journey their journey, and see if any bit of my life correlates. I wish I had something like that. And so that's why I wrote it. I felt like the Lord asked me to. And if it was one person that read it, amen, I'd write it again for one. And so
you're very transparent, very transparent in your writing. And I think it's very brave to be able to step out that way. And I'm sure that many people will benefit who read the book from the fact that you're just right out there, very transparent, and tell the story as it is. I think that's a wonderful aspect of the book, in addition to that wonderful writing style you have that I just absolutely love. The book ends, interestingly enough, with a chapter called Unfinished Ending, and it kind of just says to me that the story continues. Is that what you intended there?
It is, yeah. I mean, for me, yeah, sure. There's been great successes. The Lord has been victorious in my life, but it's not over. It's not over. I still struggle. I may not struggle with same-sex attraction like I used to, but I got struggles. I'll never be free from struggles, but I have a Savior who will never leave me. And so for me, I think, sometimes we read these things, we're like, oh, and look, and happily ever after. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, for eternity, but right now on earth, there's going to be struggles. And so I didn't want to leave people with this, like, oh, and now everything's just all good. Well, it is. And it's beautiful. And I'm so thankful that I'm not where I was. The Lord has walked me so lovingly and patiently out of the life I was in. But I pray that in 6 months and in a year, he's walking me out of where I'm at now, So this is a journey of sanctification. This is not a one and done. Jesus isn't a one-hit wonder. He's not a magician. He says, I call you friend. He calls me his beloved. He calls me his bride, right? And so I want to fall in love with him. And when you're in love with someone, you want to be with them every day. You want to hear from them. You want to talk to them. You want to give your life to them. And so, yeah, it's very unfinished.
Was there a particular aha moment when you realized that you weren't going to do it yourself and that you had to kind of turn it over to the Lord?
Yeah. Absolutely. So it was actually by the grace of God, I got cheated on by the last girl that I dated. And that was kind of when I just reflected. I'm like, wait a minute, what am I doing? I keep pointing the finger at everybody, but there's three pointing back at me. Like, I got to take an evaluation of myself here. I mean, I guess I didn't have to, but it's so stupid to lie to yourself. For me, it was like, am I really going to do this? And so I just realized, like, I'm the problem. It's me. Like, yeah, sure, they've got some problems too. We all do. But like, these repeated issues and the lack of peace and this, everything, I'm going to take accountability for this. And so when I looked at that, I was like, oh my gosh, I've been playing God. I've been making my own rules. I've been taking what I want and leaving what I don't. And in turn, I'm recreating what I think or believe God is. And so I was like, you know what? It was October 17th, 2014. I said, I surrender. I said, Jesus, I give you everything I am. I give you my desire for women. I give you, when I moved to Ethiopia, I'd given, the material and all that stuff, but I held on to, one, my fear of being alone, and two, my desires for women and companionship. And so I said, Jesus, I'm no longer going to, because I all my life, I prayed, God, take this from me, take these feelings from me. And on October 17th, 2014, it was very clear that I'm done asking him to take it. I'm going to give it to him because, the world says, love is give and take. No, love is give and receive, right? And so I decided, I was like, you know what? And by the grace of God, was I able to even know this? I said, I give you my life. I give you my sexuality. I give you my fears. I give you my future. I give you all that I am. And I need you to be God of my life because I'm doing a horrible job. I said, thank God. I'm thankful that you're God and I'm not. And I need you to start being God.
How did your life change at that point? What was the next several weeks, months like?
Oh, it was radical. I go through the details of the prayer meeting I went to that evening, and I suggest if you have any interest to read that, it's just such the beauty of how God works. But yeah, the months to follow were just unbelievable. I felt like I was on a honeymoon. Really, my desires began to change. I was prayed over and I was slain in the spirit, and so I believe that there was something supernatural, right? A miracle really did happen that evening on October 17th. But just because there's a miracle, right? When the blind man now can see, he still has to look, right? And when the lame man can now walk, he's still got to walk. And so for me, yes, I was healed and set free in many ways, but I still had to walk this out and invite the Lord into it. And so, I mean, I just wanted, my taste buds changed. Like, I wanted more of the Lord. I wanted to read his word. Anything that looked, smelled, or tasted like Jesus, I wanted it. I was at daily mass. It just, the sin had lost its luster. Because I was like, oh my gosh, it was as if I had realized I was eating, go back to food again. It was like as if I was eating McDonald's my whole life, right? And then all of a sudden, God laid before me this banquet of healthy, I'm in California, San Diego, so we're gluten-free, vegan, But so he laid before me this just amazing banquet. And it was like, I can't go back to McDonald's. I don't even want it. Like, I saw now what I was consuming. And I'm not just talking homosexuality. I'm talking about the selfishness, the materialism. I mean, you name it, it's all in there. And so for me, it was just so amazing. And the more I fed on the Lord, the more I wanted him. It was like an endless, just array of all that I could have. Like, I couldn't get enough of him. And the more I wanted, the more I received. It was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And so, yeah, it was incredible. And it still is to this day. Now there's been falls, there's been struggles and trials, and there always will be. He didn't promise us a life free of struggle, a life free of temptation. No, he says that in every struggle, in every temptation, he will be my strength. And now I know that. Now I know that it is not in my strength. I am not strong. I am weak, and it is in my weakness that I can now say, Lord, I need you. I need you to be my strength. And that's why Paul in the scriptures, right, boasts of his weakness, not to celebrate his weakness, but he boasts of his weakness, for it was in that place God would be strong, because he was humble enough to say, I can't do this, Lord. I can't do this. I need you. And that's why Jesus came, to save us, right? Not once, but forever.
Kim, this has been a fascinating half hour. It's a remarkable story. God bless you. The book is, again, entitled Restless Heart, My Struggle with Life and Sexuality. It's published by Crisis Publications, which is an imprint of the Sophia Institute Press. It's available just about anywhere you can find a book. And Kim, thank you so much for being with us here on The Storytellers.
Truly blessed. Thank you, Johnny.
And that's our show for today. The program premieres at 6 p.m. on Wednesday evenings on YouTube, at the Fiat Ministry Network, and at my website, TonyAgnesi.com. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single issue. The radio program is produced by the Living Bread Radio Network, airs at 4 p.m. on Sundays on the Living Bread Radio Network, and the podcast is available at thestorytellersradio.com and wherever you get your podcasts. This is Tony Agnesi. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you again next time on the next edition of The Storytellers. God bless you.
We hope you've enjoyed today's edition of The Storytellers with Tony Agnesi. To learn more about today's storyteller, go to thestorytellersradio.com. There you can subscribe to the podcast and hear all of our past shows. And join us again next week at this same time for The Storytellers with Tony Agnesi.